Thank you for joining the VOLTHA call today, and we are recording this, so it will be posted later to the VOLTHA channel, or VOLTHA playlist, rather. So I think first on the agenda today, and I need to change one thing on my screen. There we go.
I think we all need a break.
We do. All right. So first thing on the agenda today was to have some continued discussion about whether or not there's a need to tag version 1.1.1. So Sean, this is one area where we were looking for feedback from you as product owner. And so the background on this is when we tagged 1.1.0, it did not include the patches for 5.1.3 and 5.1.4. So how we had left things was that after kind of the preliminary testing was done for VOL 467, which is now closed and complete. After that smoke test was done, we had planned to tag 1.1.1. So it's still a possibility, but the question is there a need for us to tag 1.1.1 so that we have a version that includes VOL 513 and 514 before, say, 1.2? And we can go look at those if that would be helpful. Yeah. Do you want me to bring those up?
I was going to look into it.
Sean, are you on now?
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, Tim, can you hear me?
Yes, Kim.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm having internet service problems, so I'm in on a mobile. All right, I'm with you.
So, Sean, you want to look at that and defer the decision?
No, I'll look at it. Okay.
I know you just flew back. You're probably a bit jet lagged.
So I think the branch, the issues have been cherry picked from master to the 1.1, and I think it would take little effort to tag the 1.1.1. Kim and David looked at that. There's been no documentation support for 1.1.1, and so it's just really a matter of do we want to tag it and push it out there without documentation, or is there a reason to do that, or should we defer that into 1.2 in early mid-December timeframe and include documentation with the release? I think that's really what it comes down to decision-wise.
Right. So far, so this too is for the swarm mode support, right?
Yes.
Correct. Yes.
14.
Right. Has it been fully tested in a?
Let me just interrupt here for a second, Sean. Sorry. So we have been doing some further testing on this, and we did find an issue where kind of a fatal issue where if the OLT goes away and doesn't come back, there's a kind of a lockup in VOLTHA. Mm-hmm. And so we're working on that right now. So I would suggest we would defer this.
Don't include that. Yeah. I mean, if they're still buggy, I wouldn't introduce additional complexity. If anybody, let me say it this way: for AT&T, right now we know this is not supported, and I don't think this is urgent. Since we have such a small number of the participants. So I don't mind. I think if we can fully implement it in a healthy state in 1.2, I think that is okay with AT&T. For Deutsche Telekom, I think they're going to look at this pretty soon. I don't know whether the Björn is joining. I know, but I think they're also in the initial state. So I think let's move this 1.2. Would that be too bossy to make this a decision, or I mean, you guys will do the work? But
I think that no, I don't think that's being bossy. I think we need that decision. If there's no compelling reason to push the 1.1.1 tag, and there's a fatal bug associated with the then it makes sense. Let's not tag it. Let's defer and push the fixed solution out in 1.2.
So the tag is just to include these two. Is that what it is?
There are a few other issues.
The tag would include, the fixes for, I think it was 5.13.14 or something like that. There were 5 changes from master that were cherry picked to the branch, so that pretty much, was these particular JIRAs that are out there. So, and Sean, I'm kind of agreeing with what you're saying. There may be like another change or fix that has to get on there. So, I mean, we could tag it at any point if we cherry pick, another, maybe 1 or 2 more changes over there. But, it's just kind of in a holding in case we would ever decide that, okay, that's a fully working, swarm release, for the adapter. So that's just what I think about it.
Yeah, but we can say 1.1.1 doesn't need those 2, but the cherry picking stuff, do we need those, right? So question is 1.1.1 going to be cut regardless of those 2 anyway. But so in that case, it doesn't change the decision. So go ahead with 1.1.1 without 1.1.1. No, yeah, without. I think I have a concussion.
Yeah, we could do that. That's easy enough to do. We just have to put a tag on the current marking point. And I don't think that's a problem, because if there are a couple more changes, that can be a 1.1.2 over there. As long as we don't have to make any changes to like ONOS apps or anything that was, version lockdowns. That was the big effort part of it, and we don't want to have to go through that again. If it's desired to defer that big type of thing till a 1.2 if we would ever want to change the ONOS apps, because it is an effort to do it.
Okay.
So maybe the summary of this is I could just put that tag on there, and that would just mark the 1.1.1, and we keep going forward with testing. If we find anything else, we can cherry pick 1 or 2 more over to there, and that can be called a 1.1.2 at some point. But it really doesn't constitute a official release. It's just kind of the holding, because of the release note issues, that Tim mentioned. Right.
Right. Yeah. So maybe just tag it, so at least we have a minor milestone. So.
Yeah, and it would be a .z milestone. So I think that makes sense, and it can be there. Not a lot of fanfare with it, but we just mark it, and then we can discuss further if we decide that we want to, pick that up and make it, be a formal release with all the release notes in there and such like that. It all depends on timing, how fast we march to 1.2.
Okay.
Yeah, Julie, that's good. Yeah, so I'll put that tag out at some point today, and I'll just put a note on to discuss, saying that that was done. So.
All right, that sounds good.
Now, is there a bug logged against the swarm implementation? Sean, you were mentioning a fatal error. Is that logged as a bug?
No, we just came across that, so I'll add something.
Yeah, okay. I think let's open it.
Yeah, that was very new. We haven't even opened the internal tracking one yet for that. So
if it is a fatal bug, I guess the question is, should we get that fixed before we do 1.1.1?
Well, that was the thing. Is the question is, I don't know how long it's going to take, you know, so, you know, it's either way. I mean, it could be a 1.1.2 and it just has like one or two more cherry picks over there that addresses
But isn't
that
1.1.1 essentially non-usable because of this fatal bug?
Okay.
right?
So 1.1.
Well, now let's back up a little bit. It's the case of, Sean, you can maybe elaborate on that, but it's the case where the OLT disappears and comes back, and that's a actual something you have. You know, it's not like in a normal operation, right? That wouldn't happen, but in case it does, right? It's a
So as a corner
does that only
case,
happen when the switch over happen, or?
Oh, it's not related to switchover. It's if the OLT goes away, and for some reason,
if there's a failure of like a compute node or something, and the adapter has to switch over to a different platform, then that still works fine. It's just if the OLT itself goes away.
so a corner case.
right? So it is useful. I mean, if you know, if the OLT is still, I mean, you can still demonstrate traffic and see operation. You can see the swarm, you know, recovery and things like that. It's just if you switch the OLT off and turn it back on, that's what we're talking about. So David, it's not an entirely fatal, doesn't make an unusable configuration. It just doesn't come back if the OLT for any reason happens to disappear and reappear.
Okay.
Right. So
that makes sense.
Hi, this is Amit. Kim, just to qualify that a little bit more. So after the OLT comes back, things get back. I think things come back to normal. What happens is during the time period where the OLT is down, the VOLTHA is not usable, as in it goes into a hung state.
yeah, waiting for the OLT to come back. Yeah, that's the behavior that we don't like.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. I don't think I captured the issue correctly here. So as VOLTHA goes into a hung state if the OLT...
We'll get a JIRA in there that describes, you know.
I was going to try and put some placeholder info. I'll just leave it as a generic JIRA to be opened then at this point.
Right.
Okay.
So I just wanted to, you know, address David's point is if we do a 1.1.1, it's not, you know, totally unusable. It just has basically the issue, the new JIRA that we're gonna open that describes the OLT recovery case. There's a bug in there, right? And if that's fixed, then it's a 1.1.2. David, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so let's keep with the plan there, I think, as you have documented. We'll open an issue, and it'll be a tracking issue, and that issue will be targeted to a 1.1.2 then, Julie, if you can make sure there's a thing in JIRA so we can, you know, map that JIRA to 1.1.2.
Okay. All right, so we'll have to create that because we don't have that in there yet. Okay. Any other comments on this topic? So I think we have a path forward for now, which is good. And then if the JIRA ticket happens to be opened before I send out the meeting notes, then I can populate it in here. And okay, very good. So I think the next thing to go on to is the Sprint 3 issues that are still open. And I wanted to start with 535 because there was some discussion that pointed to having some discussion on the issue during the call today. So 535, I believe, 535, I believe was that one. So I'll bring that up here. And this was for DHCP L2 relay. Use OLT uplink port for packet in, packet out towards DHCP server. And so there was discussion since the last call on that. So thank you guys for taking a look at that. And then here's where we have the discussion requested for today. So if this goes forward, then it looks like there's an API change, and it's not clear if any of the apps, I think, use the affected API, and I think that's part of what the discussion was for today. So David or Amit, if one of you could speak to this issue and engage the team, that would be great.
Okay, I'll go first. I'll go first. Yeah, this represents, as I call, a configuration change, as well as, so it also reflects the API. And so it's an external surface change. And so as an external surface change, anybody configuring this information, although it hasn't been used to date, or there's an API compatibility issue. And that just kind of from a process perspective means you're ticking up a major version. That's all the comments here really mean.
And so, Amit, what are you looking for feedback from the group on the call today?
Yeah, so if we agree that we will bump up the major version, I can go ahead and put in the change, and that's
okay.
it.
Yep. And that will then facilitate changes to anything that currently depends on
Status. Yep.
the previous version.
Yeah, that's correct.
So do we have views today from any of the other groups, people on the call, on whether or not we can have agreement to bump or increment the major version?
But what does it mean, increment the major version, right? I mean, the major release version. So does it mean it's a 2.0? That's 2.0, right?
Right. It goes from 1. Whatever it is today to 2.0.
It means if we want to implement today now, that one now means we're releasing 2.0 in.
This is an app. This isn't VOLTHA itself. This is just the app will change.
Oh, it's an app change.
Yeah. VOLTHA 1.1 can depend on an app version 2.0. It's not a problem there.
Yeah, okay. I think that is fine. It just maybe Sergio need to update that release map, right?
Release
software map, software version table.
Is this ONUS app used by any other cord group? Is this being used anywhere other than in VOLTHA?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, yeah, not to my knowledge.
But that's a good question. We can publish it out onto the cord discuss list.
Okay, and is anyone willing to sign up to take this issue over there?
I can
Amit or David?
I'll post it. It's easy enough to post.
Okay, thanks, David.
Hey, David, you still have a job.
This week.
Yeah, last week, the first thing I saw David was, if I'd still have my job.
Okay, so we will see what we get for feedback from the other group, and I think we can move on to the next issue. Anything else before I move on? Okay, then the next one, we will go back to 460. Okay. And I think where we left this one last, let me see if there are any updates. Naren, you were going to see if you could talk to Sarisha, and it was not clear if you'd have an answer yet by today. Any progress on this one?
Actually, I could not reach to Sirisha. I'm still trying. She is
Okay.
in Indian time zone, but
Yeah.
I will be keep trying actually until next week.
Okay. So
But she
we'll see
has
if we have.
somewhere the return actually, but that I could not retrieve it from there. So I just need to get her where the location is, so I
Okay.
can post it here.
All
Sorry
right.
for that.
And then full 408 is the next one. Yep, here we go. And do we have Sergio on? Ah, yes, I think we do. So do we have, let me check here. I think we gotten a status from Sean when after he talked to you at the cord build. So in terms of this, are we still on track for having VOLTHA?
I'm about halfway
okay.
done. I was actually working on it before this call.
Okay. So it sounds like we're still on track for having this completed in Sprint 3?
Yep.
Great. Thank you very much. And actually, why don't I change this to in progress, because it still shows us to do. That way we know it's being worked. Okay. I probably should have done that earlier and I missed that. Okay. And I believe the rest of the items were adapter issues, and most of them were probably discussed yesterday. I was unable to make yesterday's meeting. Tim, are there any items on the adapter side that need to be revisited with this group today?
I don't think so. We covered them. They were in the notes and on the recording yesterday. Mm-hmm. So those that are in progress are, many of the ones are pending. CalSoft getting remote access to hardware targeted by the end of this week per David. So hopefully those will complete by closure of the sprint.
Okay, great. So I think we're probably done with the updates on the open issues then. Any specific items that the group would like to go back to and talk about specifically today? Okay, I think then we can go on to the new JIRA tickets. Oh, was someone making a comment? Okay, I don't think so. So let me go back. And new JIRAs, I believe there was one. Let me get back there. I had it open and then I reused the window, so now I have to redo it. Sorry about that. Okay, so only one new issue came in, and that is VOL 546, add support for proxy servers in build. And
is this a bug or a story? I mean, it's listed as a bug.
Yeah, it's listed as a bug. It looks like it may be a story. Currently, it's not supported to build the Docker images in an environment without direct internet connectivity where a proxy server is required. Ideally, no additional config is required within the repo. Proxy server config is detected from environment and propagated to corresponding builds.
He opened a ticket and he assigned, or he or she, sorry, opened a ticket and assigned it to her.
Yeah, I'm curious what the problem is they're really running into.
I'm not sure. So it sounds like probably, is anyone on the call familiar with this issue? If they are, I figure it'd probably be someone from the Nokia side.
Yes. So the issue is behind, if we are sitting behind the firewall, we cannot make the builds without changing the proxies. So that's why that he is talking about.
I'm trying to understand that. So your build machine has access through a proxy to Docker Hub?
We are behind the firewall. That's the main criteria. Okay, and then we cannot reach to without adding the proxies. We cannot reach to the make the builds actually, because it will download something, right, to make the Docker images.
Adding the proxies to what, I guess, is my question.
So the proxies are like the internet HTTP proxies.
So you just need to do the configuration on the host build machine?
Yeah.
This is only affecting the build, right? Because I think once the image is built, and then I think for the real scenario, right, is the VOLTHA can be installed without internet. That's the whole solution.
That was the point. Yeah.
And so this is only for build, okay?
But isn't everybody behind firewalls though? Why is this a particular problem?
I think some security models use proxies to access HTTP as opposed to allowing your firewall to pass port 80 and 443 for HTTP.
Oh,
right? So they send everything HTTP through a proxy, and there are a lot of people that use that antiquated methodology anymore. Good firewall just allows traffic through because it's blocked incoming stuff. That's the way nobody is doing it now. So they probably need a solution. I think it's probably specific to them. I don't know that it's a generic solution that we need in the world, but that's my opinion.
So I think the thing is, since I think Nokia raised the issue and then assigned to themselves, I think they're going to create a solution themselves. Would that be a okay solution, and then put it, I think that basically the new way and the old way both support it. I think that because we don't know what exactly the network environment for anybody, right? So
yeah. I mean, it's fine if a solution goes in that won't overly complexify using it a standard way, which is with no proxy.
The only other place this may come into play is in China. I know in court they've had issues with things like this.
Okay.
But this is just a proxy option, right? So for other party who want to build the VOLTHA, then there may not be an issue, right?
Oh yeah, no, it's not an issue for anyone behind a firewall that does not require a proxy for HTTP and HTTPS.
Yeah. So David, do you think that which way would potentially create problem for the China?
The Chinese often have firewalls where proxies are needed. They also have issues where we use standard sites that we assume we being in the U.S. standard sites, assuming everybody has access to, and in China they often don't. They have alternate ones that end in .cn versus .com or whatever. So courts run into some of those issues. So I suspect if someone tried to build in China, they may run into some of this as well.
Okay. You mean without it? Okay.
Yeah. I'm with Sergio on this. If it can be added in such a way that it doesn't impact, anybody who doesn't have this issue, I'm all for it. I think this is a small percentage of cases that need this. Well, if you don't count the Chinese population, and so we don't want to put an extra burden on the on the majority of people that will be building it.
Well, Chinese population building forward, I guess.
Or VOLTHA, right?
Or VOLTHA, yeah.
So basically, the solution that we're not objecting this one. So okay. when does did they mention anything about target for this?
No.
And also not in progress either, right? So
right.
I think we should be a story, not a defect.
Yeah, I agree.
Anybody else agree?
Yeah, I agree. I agree that it should be a story.
And maybe see whether Nokia when they want to put this in. So have to have the person open ticket to provide the.
Is there a epic this belongs in? What's the fixed version target?
Maybe the epic part of the installing VOLTHA without that's.
Well, that's installing, not the build. Maybe it just goes in the background.
Sean, we will get back to you next week when we like to have the target.
Okay.
Great.
Should I call you out here, Niren, instead? Or leave it?
Which one? What?
I was.
That's fine. You can put his name, my name.
Okay. Okay.
It doesn't matter. It's okay.
All right. And let's see. Sean, were you wanting to add a component here? Is that what you were saying?
We don't have anything. VOLTHA install? No, this is not VOLTHA install. This is built, so.
Yeah.
No.
I just put it in the core. Yeah.
All right. Okay, that was the only new issue. Let me go ahead and refresh one more time to make sure. And nothing has shown up while we were discussing that, so that's good. And then the last item I wanted to briefly talk about is one I believe that Tim talked about on the adapter call yesterday as well, which is we do need to have some additional work done on documentation and trying to get some of that cleaned up and prepped in conjunction, I think, with 1.2 in particular to try and get caught up on things. So, Sean, I don't know if you want to, have any in-depth discussion on that today. I was just bringing it there to kind of highlight it and to give folks some visibility that I think we need to start addressing that during the remaining time that we have. And I think likely, so we have an expected sprint 4 as a hardening sprint, and I think that probably would be a good time to include documentation work as well.
My only comment is I think the Jira, not the Jira, the wiki page, right? I did a search yesterday. I didn't see the release 1.0 release note either. I don't quite remember. Did we work on that?
Did you say 1.0?
In the back? Yeah, I couldn't find the 1.0 release note.
That wiki page is in need of help. So, but let's put a story around that and assign it to perhaps a few stories and assign that to people to bring up that up to date. I think we agreed that wiki would be the primary location for documentation to be stored. And there's a lot of embedded documentation just in that page that's badly out of date.
Okay, so I think this is something we can work in the background and start to get that added in, as individual stories, so that way we can track the progress through Jira on that. And try and get these assigned to, I think, what will be Sprint 4 most likely for this release. Any other comments related to documentation? I just, like I said, want to have some high-level discussion and point out that we're going to try and get some more updates and fill in the gaps and all of that, since it is an area that we are lacking at this point.
Yeah, whenever we have a meeting with other service providers.
It comes up every time, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So we're trying to get that resolved, and hopefully getting these spelled out a little bit more in Jira will bring some focus to it, and we can put an effort in to get that done this year.
Yeah, so
right.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And the wiki right now has too much information. Maybe we need to make it sub-pages, things like that. So
yes. It's just a long scrolling list and needs child pages created to drill down. All right, so let's have a separate meeting perhaps, or just on one of our upcoming meetings, just do some replanning. Yep, on the wiki.
In the meantime, I'll see whether I can get the Google Doc, the 1.0 link up to it. So.
Actually, Sean, I've got an idea there on how to do that and where to do that. I'll work with you on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for keeping me not working. That's fine.
I didn't say that.
Sean, Sean, I need the documentation you mentioned here about the wiki. Is that what would be the content there? Like,
what would be the content?
Yeah, like is it for the or the end user, like operators?
At least for the release, no, we need to have detail related stuff, and then there are more feature specific documentation, right? So I think with the features dependent documentation as part of the release, or have a link to that, I think that's just the mechanism. We need to figure it out.
So we actually have epics from the very beginning for VOLTHA integration documentation, document VOLTHA installation and configuration, and document VOLTHA admin guide. Those are Vol 1, 2, and 3. And to the best of my knowledge, we really haven't addressed those at all. And so there's those plus the release notes for each release that should cover elements of those and anything that changed. So we should create some documentation around those, or update the documentation.
Right, and to be honest, I think a lot of the like, for example, information is in the README file, that directory, or the information is in the top of the software. Yes. Those are not sufficient, right?
Yes.
Because a potential service provider would like to have a hands-on on these things, they wouldn't know where to find things. So guidance will definitely be required. And I guess that's a software integrator's job, but for service provider, but not anyone has the the software integrator in place yet. So. Yeah, so let's beef up, getting more specific on those 3 Jira, and this, of course, service provider definitely has what we used to receive, and then from individual vendors. So whether we can get that into that level, open source community, to get into that, more vendor grade release note, that's still to be seen, but I think we need to get at least on the way to that. Sorry, I'm just talking about everybody understand. Everybody already knows, so I'm pitching to the choir.
Well, thanks, Sean. Any other comments from the group? Okay, if there are no other issues, then I think we're done for the day. And I can go ahead and stop the recording. So one last call for topics for discussion today.
I think, of course, I need to talk to this with a Scrum Master first. There was a proposal about a technical lockdown. The Deutsche Telekom, I met with them earlier this week. They thought maybe doing the broadband forum in New Orleans, that can be a good time. But right now we don't have any company or any place that can happen. The DT is under assumption is most of the people here will have the company is represented in broadband forum, which may not be quite true, but they're hoping because they're going to have 4 people from DT on site for the broadband forum in New Orleans. And all 4 of them are very access network oriented. They're all involved with VOLTHA and then the R court. So I think that's the Friday of the 1st December, which is the 7th and 8th. I think they were hoping, they think maybe the afternoon of the 7th and then the whole day of the 8th can be a good, if we need their face-to-face input. So, but I think potentially it may not be that feasible because no one has a host site there as far as I know. So AT&T, I'm going to ask whether AT&T has something around there.
Why don't you reserve a room in the hotel?
Reserve, yeah, that is also something. But I at this point I don't know who has the money to pay for that. Right. So and so I think I'll talk to my manager about this also. And personally, I think that's not a good week for me personally too. So Tim and Julie, we will brainstorm on that one.
Okay.
But sorry, we have been doing the cry-wolf thing about the potential dates for the VOLTHA lockdown, and I think DT think the 7 and 8 will be the good time for the VOLTHA lockdown. So we will keep you posted again.
Okay, thanks, Sean. So if anything more concrete develops, if I could ask that we get that posted to VOLTHA Discuss, because right now it's, like I said, just some tentative preliminary discussions. We're looking at feasibility, but if things start to firm up with an actual date, then we'll make sure that we get the community notified, and we can always talk about it again next week. Before I let everyone go, so reminder, next week we have a modified schedule. We'll still have the call on Tuesday as usual, except that one will be hosted by Tim, not by me, because I will be on a plane. And then Wednesdays and Thursdays calls are canceled. So there'll be one meeting next week, and it will be on Tuesday at the usual time, and just a different host for leading the discussion. Okay. And, anything else? Oh, yes.
After Thanksgiving, we're probably going to. That's again the talk with Julie and Tim is we want to devote a significant time on the architecture and framework discussion for 2.0. So that's a warning. Okay.
Okay. Anything else from the group? Then I will go ahead and close up the bridge. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And
Julie and Tim, shall we? We have a meeting follow up, right?
Yeah.
Immediately. Shall we just start right now?
I was going to suggest that. I'll go ahead and close the VOLTHA meeting so I can stop the recording, and then we'll continue with our Scrum Master. Okay, I'll stop the recording now. Thanks, everyone.